by Fred Grossman. Who doesn't know Fred Grossman? Yes, we all know of him. The Yid from Chesed Shalamis. Okay, so he's sponsoring this year. Lilu Nishmas, his dear father, Rab Chaim ben Aaron Akoyen, the Yortzeit Yeshiva B'Tammuz. We hereby wish Fred and his family long life, and the dedication of this year should be a schus for Aliyah Neshama. The Neshama will have an Aliyah. Should be a Meritz Yosher for the whole family. Teuber B'Levracha. Und der schus soll euch beistehen. And definitely, I remember Mr. Hugo Grossman, Olav Hasholem. He was my landlord. A gewaldige Yid. I hope I was as good to him as he was to me. Well, what do I know? If you have a bet Mechile, so the cover the yard side, well, bet Mechile. Aber definitely.
Sagen L'chaim.
Definitely, ich will sagen L'chaim. Und noch ein Wort. Und, you know, like it says, by Yehi Yankev Beretz mit Sraim Shvayas Rishona. So it was 224 Hatham Street, were from the best Jahren in Melbourne. Das kann ich ja sagen. L'chaim B'Levracha. Das Chuz alech beistehen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakohen lehi yaved dvorei. Okay, now we are going to focus on a pasuk in Parshas Pinchas. I hope you all have your Chumash Bamidbar, at least your Chumash Bamidbar, and we're going to Parshas Pinchas because we are geglichen. But we more or less merged with the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. So the coming week, both in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz is in Parshas Pinchas. So we will, now there are many in Yonim in Parshas Pinchas, and don't be surprised why I chose this pasuk. I'll tell you why. Because I found an interesting Rogatchover on it. Even though there's so many interesting and major topics in the parsha, nevertheless, I hope I'll be able to share with you the Rogatchover in the correct way, because of course the Rogatchover's words are cryptic as usual. Nevertheless, we'll attempt and endeavor. Now, the pasuk which we will learn together is as follows. In Parshas Pinchas, Kapitel Chavav, chapter 26, Kapitel Chavav, pasuk Yud Aleph. Chavav Yud Aleph. And the pasuk reads, Chumash Bamidbar, Parshas Pinchas. And that's in Sheni, to make things easier, simpler. The pasuk reads, Bnei Korach loy Meisu. No, durchgegangen a Parshas Korach, mit a Parshas Chukas, mit a Parshas Bolok, and you think by Pinchas it's all forgotten. Bnei Korach loy Meisu, meretchen weiter. The pasuk beforehand talks about Dosam va'aviram, Kriyo Eda. In pasuk Yud it talks about Tiftach Haaretz Pia, Vativla Isam. In pasuk Yudalev it says Bnei Korach loy Meisu, and the Meforshim discuss why Bnei Korach loy Meisu is mentioned dafka here in Parshas Pinchas and is not mentioned in Parshas Korach. That's one issue. Also, there's another issue. We're not going to deal with these issues, but possibly through the discussion, maybe it will be reconciled. Another issue, why is it mentioned dafka here in sequence to Dosam va'aviram? Okay, that makes sense. It follows. But nevertheless, some of Farshim want to say the reason why it's mentioned here of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, because if we read on, if you take a look, we read on in Parsh and Chavav pasuk Nun Ches, you'll see it says there, it enumerates Eila Mishpachos Levi. Now, if Korach got lost, right, was lost by Yehovah Mitrecha Kol, and all of the descendants of Korach, and no one was left. So how do we have in Zman from Moshe Rabbeinu, when we're enumerating the Mishpachos Levi in Kapitel Chavav, pasuk Nun Ches, it says Mishpachas HaKorchi. Weiße Choiseb is geblieben. There's someone there. How is that? So that's what some Meforshim want to say. That's what the Torah mentions here of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, being that the Bnei Korach loy Meisu. So therefore, there is Mishpachas HaKorchi, even Bisman Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, like I said, Meforshim deal and address that. Now, before we go on to address this, let me just bring to your attention as follows: that a fair bit of information and references to the Meforshim, which we will address today, and share today in the shiur, is found in Likutei Sichos from the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Chusay Yogan Aleinu and Likutei Sichos, volume 33, Chelek Lamed Gimel, in Parshas Pinchas. And there's a lengthy, not lengthy, from page 170 to page 175, where there is in-depth analysis of the Pirush Rashi, which we're going to address. And there the Rebbe addresses all the details of what Rashi says, which we are not going to touch on Dafka. We'll just deal with the Rashi in general. But I will share with you some of the Meforshim the Rebbe incorporates. The Rebbe actually, it's a very interesting sikha. He references about 16, if I counted correctly, 16 super commentaries. I think that's what they call the commentaries on Rashi. They call them super commentaries. I don't know, something like that. But there are many. There are tens and more, very many before Rashi. The Rebbe, in the discussion of analyzing the Rashi, references and refers and quotes 16 out of the many before Rashi, how they treat this Rashi in many different ways, etc. We're moving on. Now, Rashi, let's take a look at the Rashi. And Rashi says, Bnei Korach lo Meisu. Says Rashi, Hey mehoyu be'etzot chila. Ubeshas hamachloikes hiru tshuva belibam. Lefichach nizbatzer lohem mokim gavoya begehenim v'yashvu sham. I'm going to read it to you in the English, in the art scroll. Zacharoyse ish letoiv, Zlotovich olav hasholem. Adank Zlotovich olav hasholem, and Sherman, yeah, la'alichas yomim. And he translates the Rashi. I'll read it for you in the English translation. For those who need the English translation, I can also use the English translation. So Rashi says, Bnei Korach lo Meisu. The sons of Korach didn't die, so Rashi says, it's an art scroll Rashi. They were involved in the plan at first. And at the time of the dispute, they had thoughts of repentance. A high place was fortified for them in Gehenim. V'yoshvu sham, and they resided there. Atkan divrei Rashi. And this is Pshuta Shel Mikra, you get it? This is Pshat. So Bechama Shel Mikra learns this Pshat, and I think, I don't know, how does he take it? He's mistama traumatized. What's going on there? Anyway, there is an Oivanon in Gehenim. If you take Rashi at face value, you know, sometimes you put someone Oivanon, you should sit Oivanon, and it's a Gehenim for that person to sit Oivanon. And sometimes there is an Oivanon in Gehenim. You never realized it, right? Alle suchen sitzen Oivanon. Well. Wir sollen nur haben alle getiken Gan Eden. Aber, weißt du, dass diejenigen, die sitzen Oivanon in Gehenim. And are they alone there? Don't know. According to some Meforshim, part of the punishment is, like Rashi says, Nizbatzer lahem, mokom gavoya begehenim. So they explain. Nizbatzer means that they're so confined, they're quarantined in this mokom gavoya. They have no one to talk to. There's no neighbors. In Gehenim, wherever the guy is, they will mit ihm zu durchschmussen etwas azach. No neighbors in Gehenim. Would you believe it? There's Shiva Meduri Ganim, the Gemara says in Masechta Soita, and they're in an area in Ganim where they're quarantined and locked down. In Ganim, they're in lockdown, so some of the Mefarshim say that's part of the punishment. They're b'mokum gavoya, and then is batza lohem, so to speak, encircle. No neighbors, no one to schmooze with, no one to have a coffee break with, because you know the well-known story with the coffee break. They take this Yid up, we once mentioned it more than once, take him upstairs and they give him a choice to go to Gan Eden or the Gehenim. And he sees, gets a tour of the Gehenim and he says it doesn't look so bad. Because what does he see? He sees everybody just smoking cigars and drinking coffee. Trachter ist eine gewaltige Sache. So he says, was nicht, noch 120, they bring him up to Gehenim. They say, where you going? They say, you're going to Gehenim. Why is he going to Gehenim? He chose. He had a gewaltige tour and he went for it. He comes there. And yeah, he joins in with the crowd. We get them a cigar, and we get them a glazel cover. And in half an hour it's over, and they put him weistig as a tief in der daran. So they said, what's going on there? They said it was a coffee break. So the Meisu is, you can be in a mokim gavoya begenim, you can sit even on again. Question is how long you can last there. So maybe it's just a coffee break, but Meisu is they taka there. It says, Rashi says, v'yoshvu sham. V'yoshvu sham. So I've noticed two Pirushim, the Rebbe references, Yehoshua means either they just hung out there, they were like, caught up there, they spent some time there, Loshen Akova, or Yehoshua, they actually enjoyed it there. They had a yeshiva b'shalva, they enjoyed it there. Well, if they be Mokum Gavoya, not bad. And Bepashtus, what does Mokum Gavoya mean? So there's in the Sefer Teres Chaim, on Mesichte Erev in Daf Yutes. The Sefer Teres Chaim is from Rav Ram Chaim Shur. He's a Talmidei of the Ramah, one of the Gdolei Achronim, and quite often he argues on the Piskei Halachos of the Shulchan Aruch. He was one of the greats. So I'll call upon him a Talmidei of the Ramah. So he brings the Mesichte Erev in Daf Yutes. What's the pshat? Mokum Gavoya. He says, that if you're lower down, on the lower levels, that's where it's really boiling hot, and that's where you get burnt. And you get, but b'mokum gavoya, it's cooler. B'mokum gavoya, it's cooler, like when the mountainous areas. In Yerushalayim or HaKodesh, it's cool, right? Because it's mountainous, etc. So when you're higher up, so in the Gaon, it's also the same way, says the Teres Chaim, mokum gavoya, it's higher up. So therefore they can, when they're in the Gaonim, they don't actually get burnt up in the Gaonim. They're alive in Gaonim. And they're alive because they're b'mokum gavoya, they're higher up where the fire doesn't affect them. And we also know, derech agav, in Sof Mesichte Chagiga, the Gemara speaks about Talmidei Chachamim ein eishel Gaonim sholetes bohem. So the fire of Gaonim doesn't affect them. That's what the Gemara says in Sof Chagiga, and the question arises, what are they doing in Gaonim? If he's a Talmud Chacham, it says also Pesha Yisrael. So the Torah. So what are they doing again? So as the what's his name? As the Teres Chaim speaks with a lengthy exposition about this inyan, that there are certain inyan blemishes for the souls, even because ein tzaddik ba'oretz as sheyasa tov v'lo yechta. So he has to go through the Gaonim to be cleansed, so to speak, in a sense. Nevertheless, it's ein eshel Gaonim sholetes bohem. In other words, they're not consumed in the fire of Gaonim. They just pass by, so to speak, to get like touched up, so to speak. Well, there is a Pesha Yisrael, Malay mitzvahs karimim, so the mitzvahs also protect them. And there's actually brought in an interesting sefer called from one of the Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek and whatever, who didn't see eye to eye with the Rebbe Rashab, whatever. He wrote Agois, Bekuti Agois and the Tanya, and he brings in his commentary. In his commentary on the Tanya, he brings it's said in the name about one of the greats that he is in Gaonim, and the Bletter Gemara will protect him, that the Eishel Gaonim shouldn't get to him. And the question arises, what is this Gaon doing in Gaonim? And he reconciles it by saying, so we just finished saying that maybe there's a certain touch-up they need, but he reconciles it by saying that he goes there and passes through to take his followers out of Gaonim. He saves them. And I think there's a story or joke or whatever about Rabbi Nachman Breslover that he pulls out his chassidim with their payers, by their payers from Gaonim, and there's something going on there. I don't remember all the jokes, ich gedenk nicht alle jokes, aber lassen wir fahren weiter. Auch upon him, haben wir, the Bnei Korach are sitting b'mokum gavoya in Gaonim, which, by the way, one of the reasons Bnei Korach loy Meisu is the known word. What does it mean, Nebach, Bnei Korach loy Meisu? It's used in the negative sense, that Nebach, the Bnei Korach, the Baalei Machloikis haven't died out, and they still play an important role nowadays. Nebach, for eternity, they're still playing an important role. And whenever there's Nebach HaMachloikis, unfortunate, so we say Bnei Korach loy Meisu. Yes, this is just an expression of Achloikis Korach v'Hadassah. That's in the negative sense. But we see Rashi, in the context of Rashi, we see Rashi explains it in the positive sense. And Bepashtus, that's what the Torah is telling us, of Bnei Korach loy Meisu. And Rashi tells us as follows. Basically, what does Rashi want? So there are many ways of explaining what Rashi was bothered. Rashi was bothered, some want to say Rashi was bothered with the Loshen of the Pasuk. It says, Bnei Korach loy Meisu. Why doesn't it say V'choyu, V'choyu? Because if you recall, earlier by the Meraglim, right? It says, Kol ben Yehoshua V'choyu. They were V'choyu. Where's my Chumash? So earlier in Parsha Shlach, it says, Yehoshua bin Nun v'Chalev ben Yefuna chayu mina anoshim oheim. Why does it say over here, Bnei Korach loy Meisu? It should have said v'chayu. Another pirush they want to say, how can Rashi say of Bnei Korach loy Meisu? If you take a look at your Chumash, let's turn pages back to Parshas Korach, and in Parshas Korach we read as follows. It says in Parshas Korach, let me tell you exactly the page. It says in the Pasuk, in Kapitel Tes Zayin, Pasuk Lamed Beis, it says, "Vatiftach ha'oretz es pia, vativ la'oisam ve'ez boteyem, ve'ez kol ha'odam asher le'korach." It says clearly, "Kol ha'odam asher le'korach," all the people who are of Korach's people. So, Kol ha'odam bepashtus is incorporating and including also the Bnei Korach. That's the way we would learn according to Rashi, because Rashi does not comment. So you take the Chumash at face value. Kol ha'odam would mean incorporating Bnei Korach. That's what some Meforshim want to say, according to Rashi. And the Marsha says so Mefurish in Mesichta Sanhedrin. In the Daf Kuf Yud says the Marsha, yes, so it seems that Kol ha'odam, also the Bnei Korach, was swallowed up in the ground. So how could the Torah say of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, that they didn't die? Other Mefarshim and the Rashi want to say that Rashi is bothered with the whole message of Bnei Korach loy Meisu. Why does the Torah tell us of Bnei Korach loy Meisu? From this that the Torah has to tell us of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, it would seem that there's something novel about it. What's so novel about it? And therefore Rashi has to tell us what he tells us. What does Rashi tell us? An interesting thing. Rashi says that yes, Bnei Korach loy Meisu, they incited, they were part of it in the first instance, in the plan of Korach and Koladosai. And they were Maharer b'tshuva. But the Hirer tshuva was Belibam. Therefore, that's why it doesn't say B'choya. And that's why the Torah has to say they didn't die. And basically, they were swallowed up according to this approach. They were swallowed up, like it says, they were swallowed up. By the way, just before we forget, just the Ramban, Mefurish learns and Parshas Korach that this is referring to all the people which Korach acquired, his slaves and his servants and the like, either the non-Jewish ones, the Canaanites, or the Ethiopians, or even the Jewish ones, but not Dafke his sons. That's the way the Ramban learns. But Meforshi Rashi want to say that Rashi learns Kipshuto that the Bnei Korach means that the Bnei Korach was swallowed. Now, if they were swallowed up, what's the meaning of Bnei Korach loy Meisu? So therefore, Rashi reconciles it by telling us as follows. On the one hand, they did tshuva. And because the tshuva was belibam, therefore, that's why Bnei Korach loy Meisu. But being that the tshuva wasn't complete, wasn't wholesome, and actually, if you take a look at the Rashi and take Rashi at face value, we can learn, like the Rabbi explains the Likutei Sichos, that people around the Bnei Anshe Korach thought that the Bnei Korach was still going along with Korach. It was just they were Maharid, they repented, believed him, but no one really noticed it. They were still following along with him. This differs with what Rashi says in the Rashi in Tilim. But from the Rashi in Chumash, it would seem that they actually didn't separate themselves from Korach. They still went on and gathered and rioted together with Korach. But believe them, that's what Rashi says, believe them, they were Maharer b'tshuva. So really, they didn't really influence the people in a positive way. So because their tshuva wasn't complete, as the Gur Aryeh, the Maharal Miprog explains in the Rashi, therefore, on the one hand, they have to be swallowed up because they were part and parcel of it. They started it all, they instigated it, they were in the plan in the first instance. Also, their tshuva wasn't complete. Therefore, they deserve to be swallowed. But they're swallowed up, but they don't die. Nizbatzer lahem gavoya begehenim b'yoshvushon. What does that mean? That they actually, the way we know Gehenim. Gehenim means, Pashat, when hell. Gehenim means, in the Ruchnistic sense, yes, that the fellow dies. But in this context, the Meforshim bring to our attention what Rabbeinu Bechaya tells us. And that's the way most of the Meforshim learned this Rashi, according to Rashi, and we're forced to say this in a moment as we'll explain it. So let's move on quickly. That means the Mokum Gavei began. And what happened when there was the Blia of the Anshe Korach? It wasn't a pothole. I believe it was like something like a sinkhole, right? We know what a sinkhole is. If you don't know what a sinkhole is, You'll just Google and you'll see what a sinkhole is. In the last many years, etc., unfortunate sinkholes happen, and you'll see the history behind sinkholes. You'll see that some of them are massive, very, very deep, and very, very large. Well, it's a type of sinkhole. It was what the Bnei of the Anshe Korach, the story of the Gemara of the Chumash, with the Korach, with the Bluim Bisman Korach. Yeah, it was definitely a massive sinkhole. It definitely wasn't an earthquake. If you haven't, what do you call it? A Pirush of Rab Zalman Sorotskin, does Naim La Torah. He has a lengthy discussion in detail how to explain that it wasn't an earthquake. Okay, so therefore there was nothing coming. It's like these natural occurrences with earthquakes. He says, no, this was definitely above natural. And he explains it in the details of the Chumash. Interesting. And whoever has an Oznaim LaTorah can take a look there. But I'll call upon him. So plainly it was a sinkhole. So what happens here? So what does it mean? Mokim Nizbatzelem, Mokim Gavoya Beganim. It means as follows. So the Rabbeinu B'chai says Ganim doesn't mean to say the hell we know of. That means he'll burn in Gehenim. And it means noch 120 or what? Kein Yiddish Kind nicht gesagt. No, it means Gehenim means any unfortunate occurrence is Gehenim. It's like there's an expression people use to say Gehenim auf der Welt. This says any unfortunate circumstance or any unfortunate occurrence or any terrible thing which happens. That's an expression of Gehenim. Very unfortunate situations. That's what the Rabbeinu B'chai explains the meaning of Gehenim here. And I'll read for you his words. Mokoim habliya, shuhu mokoim hamishpat, nikra Gehenim. He says another pshat, because actually the Pesach of Gehenim, right, is kavua ba'oretz. It was near the mouthpiece, the opening of the real Gehenim. But it just means a mokoim where the bliya, which is mokoim hamishpat. In more detail, if you'll take a look at the Hakoisev, everybody owns a Ein Yankiv, even the London between us own an Ein Yankiv, hopefully, unless you're a yeshiva man, so it's pasnish that you should look into Ein Yankiv or own an Ein Yankiv because you skip over the Agodas Ashas, unfortunately. So, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that the Rav Seidus Atorah Gnuzimba. So what can we do for those who skip over the Agodas Ashas? But in the Agodas Ashas, there is a Pirush of the Rashba. The Chidushei Rashba, it's quoted in the Hakoisev, in your standard Vinlo or Varsha in Yankiv. Theirs is a Pirush Hakoisev, and it was also in the last many years published separately. Chidushei Rashba and Agodas, published by Machon, by a Machon of Meisu Rav Kook, called Machon L'Hoitzos Rishonim V'Achronim. Exactly, you want to know what year it was published? I'll tell you in a minute because I have it in front of my face in Tafshin Nun Aleph. Okay, so there, the Rashba says in detail, he says, because Ganim is Mokim Yodu as a known place for punishment and tsar and anguish and pain, therefore the Chachamim use this term for any hardship in life, Kechaloim, illnesses, or Pgoim, Vahagolos, or exile, and the like. And therefore, basically, he says, this is what happened in the case of the Anshe Korach, the Bnei Korach. They didn't die. What does that mean? They didn't actually die. What then happened? Because they repented, therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu made that they weren't swallowed up in this sinkhole. A niche, right? There was like a spot in this sinkhole, which they, so to speak, it was a mokum gavoya, a niche in the sinkhole, which is a mokum gavoya, which they didn't get drowned and swallowed up into it, and they remained there, and they remained alive there. Actually, let me read for you or the Rashi, or see it for yourself. There's a Rashi in Tehillim. I'll read for you the Rashi in Tehillim in a moment. Now, the reason why the Mefarshim explain that we must say, according to Rashi, that Rashi accepts this approach, that it doesn't mean mamish they died, and that's the meaning of what Rashi says, mokim, like we just finished saying, and it's getting late, it's very late, is because Rashi brings in the beginning of Parshas Korach, for those who have a Parshas Korach, a chumash in Parshas Korach, so take a look. In the beginning, in Pasuk Zayin, Kapitel Zayin, Pasuk Zayin, Rashi brings Mefurish that Korach was aware that eventually his descendants will be, Shmuel will be a descendant of him, of Korach, Shmuel. And he will be saying Shira, and he is his Bnei Banav, his descendants will also be part of the Mishmoros, part of the rosters of the Leviim in the Beis Hamikdash, etc., and these are all descendants of Korach. And he was under the impression that it's all about him. He didn't realize that it's really coming from his sons. Rashi says his sons did tshuva. And because his sons did tshuva, so all of those, Shmuel and all the rest, are descendants of Korach, but it's not directly from Korach. So Korach thought it's all about him. Really, it's all about all these, or Shmuel, and the rest of the Leviim will be coming from the descendants of his children. And that's another basis where Rashi says that they did tshuva and they didn't actually die. And that was the niche which was established for them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the niche which was established for them in this, so to speak, in this sinkhole. And Rashi, without going into the detail, you can make a note of it. Rashi says the same thing with more detail in his commentary in Tehillim, with some differences between the Rashi in the Chumash and the Rashi in Tehillim. And the Rebbe deals with the differences between Rashi in Tehillim and Rashi in Chumash. Rashi in Tehillim is in Kapitel Mem Beis, where there it says, so we have many kapitlich and Tillim. Actually, the Mefarshim bring to our attention there are 11 kapitlich and Tillim where livnei Korach. That means the Bnei Korach, like the Gemara says, Mefurish in Mesechta Bava Basra, Daf Tezvav, where the Gemara says that there were 10 greats, 10 elders together with David HaMelech who compiled Sefer Tillim, and it says there clearly that there are the Shloisha Bnei, the three sons of Korach, and the three sons of Korach, by the way, if you want to know their names, give me a minute, I'll tell you a second, because we'll take out a Chumash. In Chumash Shmois, if you don't mind, take out your Chumash Shmois. So in Chumash Shmois, it says clearly, in Parshas Va'era, Pasuk Kapitel Vav, so there it says, there it says in Kapitel Vav, Pasuk Chav Dalet, Uvenei Korach Asir ve'Elkanah va'avi Osof Eile Mishbechos HaKorchi. So that's what the Gemara says in the Sefta Bava Basra, that these three sons were part of the compilation of Sefer Tehillim with David HaMelech al Kolponim. So therefore, there were Meshurim, they sang the song, there were Leviim, they are also, so to speak, they're part of the roster. Shmuel Hanavi is the descendant of them, so we must say that it's not about Korach. Korach is swallowed up. Anyway, there's Machlokes the Gemara is from the Srufim, or from the Bluim, he's maybe from both the Srufim, he was burnt and also he was also swallowed. Another Mandomer says he died in the plague, but he wasn't burnt and he wasn't swallowed, but he died. But he died, or he was swallowed. But Bnei Korach loy Meisu, and all of the descendants are coming from the Bnei Korach. That's one take. That's the way we're learning this Rashi. That's according to the Mefarshim the Rebbe would prefer to learn. Like there is another take of Mefarshim who learn and take Rashi literally and plainly that Gehenim means Taka, the Mizok Gehenim, Taka in Shoel Tachtis. And they ended up being there. But they're not dying in Shoel Tachtis, they're alive there. And they don't get burnt in Gehenim, they have a Mokam Gavoya Begehenim. In other words, they sitzen even on in Gehenim. And the reason why they're Taka not burnt in Gehenim, and it's in a cool place, and they're, so to speak, protected. And Rashi says, Mokam Nizbatzer Lem. Nizbatzer means a high place or a strong place. If it's a strong place, it means that was the niche in the sinkhole. If it's a high place, that means it's possibly a high place also in the sinkhole, or a high place in the actual Gehenim. And they actually never came back. They never came back. And the question arises, if they never came back, and that's the meaning of Bnei Korach loy Meisu. It's not Choyu, except in Gehenim they didn't die. The question is, if they never came back, so what's going on here? If so, how could it be that the descendants? So this really doesn't follow with Rashi. Rashi seems to say in the first Rashi in Korach, like we learned in Pasuk Zayin, Rashi says there that the descendants were from the Bnei Korach because they did tshuva. But nevertheless, these Mefarshim get out of it and they explain it in certain ways. What they want to say is that the Bnei Korach actually was swallowed up together with their father, like it says in the Chumash. It means also the Bnei Korach was swallowed, and the Mefarshim Rashi want to say that it's talking about the Einiklach of Korach, that the grandchildren of Korach, the Bnei Korach loy Meisu, that means they're alive in Gehenim. but all the descendants but they remained there. But the whole descendants, even though the Taz says, the Torah of the Divrei David wants to say that even though they went to the Gaon, they rolled out. They ended up rolling out somehow. Okay, but if we learn that they remained there, so how can there be the descendants of Korach? So they say the descendants are for the grandchildren of Korach. And that's the meaning that it's Mishpachas HaKorchi is not, in other words, the descendants of Korach, the grandchildren of Korach were already adults in the time of Korach. They didn't go along with what their grandfather was doing with the revolt and the rebellion against Moshe and Aaron. Their father did, the Bnei Korach did, and they were Ba'etza, etc., etc., and therefore they were swallowed up because their tshuva wasn't complete, even though Rashi says they did tshuva, but it wasn't wholesome, it wasn't complete. And what's the hemshech? And the descendants are coming from the grandchildren. These are the two approaches in Rashi. We got to move quickly because it's very, very late. So according to that, we just finished with the Rashi and the two approaches, how to analyze this Rashi, and for a better understanding and a more in-depth analysis of this Rashi and the two opinions. So like I say, take a look at the Likutei Sichos, volume 33. We're moving on. There's another opinion, and that is, if you take out a Chumash and Bekrois Gedolos, for those who haven't Bekrois Gedolos in Chumash, in Bamidbar, sorry. So on the pasuk of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, in Parshas Pinchas of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, so there, take out the Targum. The Targum makes it clear. Targum Yonasan ben Uzziel says of Bnei, and also the Targum Yerushalmi. In Targum Yerushalmi it says of Bnei Korach al deloy havabat sosida avu and lo misu, because they weren't in the eitzah of their father. They weren't part of the eitzah of the advice with their father. They didn't take part of it. Therefore, they didn't die. So plainly, the Targum Yerushalmi learns that they actually didn't take part whatsoever, and that they had to do tshuva. There's no tshuva needed. So this whole Mizbatzul Lahem Mokum Gavoya Beganim doesn't seem to play any role according to the Talmud, the Targum Yerushalmi. And take a look at the Targum Yonasan ben Uzziel. It goes even in more detail, and it says there that Lo Yahava Be'itzid Avuin. He wasn't in the eitzah of their father, and therefore, and they went along with what Moshe taught, Moshe Nevi'ah, and therefore they didn't die, and they weren't burnt up with the fire, and also they didn't get swallowed up at all. And that seems to follow with the sheet of the Ibn Ezra on Bnei Korach loy Meisu. We'll take on Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra also learns Kipshutoi, and he brings that we see Bnei Korach, all the descendants of Korach are coming from the sons of Korach, and that's the meaning of what we said before, the Mishpachas HaKorchi. We're moving on. The three sons we mentioned earlier, that's the Ibn Ezra, and also the Rambam also seems to follow with that same shita, because the Rambam, like we said, on the pasuk where it says, the Rambam makes it very clear that it's not talking about the Bnei Korach, because the Bnei Korach, he says, it comes out according to the Targum and the Ramban and the Ibn Ezra that they weren't part at all of the Adas Korach whatsoever. They didn't play any role there at all. They didn't have to do tshuva at all, and therefore I understand as follows, that even though this what Rashi says, the Mokim Nizbatzol Lahem, Mokim Gavoyin Nizbatzol Lahem began. The Rashi takes this from the Gemara Mesichta Sanhedrin and Daf Kuf Yud and Perik Chelik, and also Mesichta Megillah Daf Yud Dalid, and it's also found al derech zeh in different medrashim. And they also say that Rashi's Pirush is also based on Medrash Tilim and Medrash Sheikha Tov in the first capital, Ashrei Oisha Shalei Alach V'atzas Rishoim. So it's beautiful. Take out a Sheikha Tov, you'll see that in detail of this capital. It's talking about Bnei Korach and their father, that the Adas Korach, Atzas Rishoim was Adas Korach, and Ashrei Oisha Shalei Alach V'atzas Rishoim. That's going on the Bnei Korach. Take a look at it, and also in other places in Medrash Sheikha Tov in capital Memvav. So others want to say that this is a basis for what Rashi says. So, excuse me. So let's conclude. So therefore, even though we find in the Chazal that Mokim Nizbatzol Lahem Beganim V'yoshvu Shom V'omru Shira, like it says in the Gemara, or Psalms Havagiris of V'omdu Shom, whatever, and Rashi seems to take it from there. Pashtus takes it from there. Nevertheless, according to the Targum Yerushalmi, Targum Yonasan ben Uzziel, and the other Rishonim from the Chumash, in other words, Al Kol Panim, there's no hechruch to say that they were swallowed at all, and therefore when we take over Bnei Korach loy Meisu, we learn Kipshutoi. So we don't have to say they were part of them and they had to do tshuva. There's no basis to have to say that. Learning the Chumash, Bnei Korach loy Meisu means Kipshutoi. The Taka didn't die and they played no role, and like the Ramban says, Mefurish, they were Gdoilim, V'tzadikim, V'toivim. And he says that's why the Torah tells us of Bnei Korach Meisu to tell us how great they were, that they weren't like the rest of the families of Nadav Avihu. But Korach's children weren't like him, of Bnei Korach Meisu. And interesting, Rabbi Neipshitz discusses being of Kibud Av by a father or Rasha. Did they have to give honor to their father? Or did they not have to give honor to the father? Take out a Nefesh Yonis and have from the Rebbe Rabbi Yonis and Nefesh Yonis and go there if you're interested. We're moving on. We must go quickly because we have to go to the Rogatchover Gaon. Now, the Rogatchover Gaon in the Sichta said, now, why does Rashi have to say what he says? That on the one hand, we said, like we explained, Rashi has to say this. The Chazal don't say that they did tshuva. The Chazal says, Mokoim nisbatza lohem, Mokoim b'vnei Korach lo meisu. Say the Chazal, Mokoim nisbatza lohem, begehenim, v'yoshvu sham, v'amdu sham, v'amru shira, the different gersais in the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't say anything about tshuva. It's Rashi's addition on his own. Rashi in the Chumash, also the Rashba. Because the Rashba follows also in the Shita of Rashi, that they did tshuva. In other words, the Rashba and Rashi go in this Shita, that they were in the beginning initially part of Adas Korach, and then they repented. For that reason, because it was like halfway, partially involved, and then they pulled out later, therefore they get this like unusual punishment. On the one hand, they're in the Gehenim, on the other hand, it's a b'mokim gavoyish in his batzer lohem. That's the why Rashi has to say what he says. They did tshuva, therefore they're b'mokim gavoya, and they're not getting burnt, and so to speak, they're still alive. Loy Meisu. On the other hand, they belong to being Gehenim because their tshuva wasn't complete, and because they were part of it, even though they did tshuva, but it wasn't complete. Now, when you look at the Chazal, take out a Gemara in Sanhedrin and Megillah, it says, Mokoim b'nei Korach Meisu, Mokoim nisbatzo lahem, begehenim v'yoshvu shon. There's no hechrich to say that they needed to do tshuva. There's also no hechrich to say that they were part of Adas Korach. It's only Rashi's explanation of the Talmud, of the Gemara, of these Chazal. Maybe if, let's say, if we would learn, for instance, like the Ramban and like the Ibn Ezra, like the Targumim, right? That they really, when it says doesn't mean that they were swallowed up with the Anshe Korach. If so, very schwer, how do we understand this Gemara? If they didn't sin and they weren't part of Adas Korach, and they were like the Ramban says, they were Gdolim with Tzadikim v'Toivim, what are they doing in Gehenim? Mokim nisbatza lahem begehenim v'yashvu sham. What are they doing there? Why are they there? If Bnei Korach lo meisu. So Rashi's miyashavit. Like Rashi says, we have to repeat it. But without Yishuv Rashi, how do we get out of this? On the one hand, they're in Gehenim. On the other hand, they're b'makom gavoya in Gehenim. Why? If they didn't sin at all. If we'll accept the Shita Udoleka Rashi, Udoleka Harajba. And I believe that's what's bothering the Rogatchover Gaon. And therefore the Rogatchover Gaon comes up with something fascinating. Now, it would seem, if you'll just take the Rogatchover Gaon at face value, as we will come across to him, because it's very late moving, we will see as follows. We will see the Rogatchover says something which is like modern. But if you're acquainted with many inyanim like this in the Shas, those, especially the Yidden out there, many Yidden who learned Daf Yomi and learned Shas and Poskim, you'll see that this kind of reconciliation is found in the Shas and by the Poskim, etc. And therefore, because the Rogatchover Gaon takes issue with this Gemara and tries to find some reconciliation to understand, how can it work that if you don't sin, you go to Gehenim? What's going on here? So he comes up with this fascinating reconciliation, and let me let you know, only the Rogatchover can say it. And you'll soon hear what he says. And therefore I say, don't think it's a doichik, it's not a doichik. Because you acquaint yourself in many in Yonim, Meshas, and Poskim, Itaki, even in this topic, you'll see that many say something like that. And let's move on quickly. But the Rogatchover Gaon introduces first an interesting thing. The Rogatchover Gaon tells us as follows. The Rogatchover Gaon, take out your Chumash Korach, your Parshas Korach, please, if you don't mind. Turn to Parshas Korach. And you'll find some many interesting things which I'm going to highlight to bring to your attention. In Parshas Korach in Kapitel Tezayin, we find as follows. It says in the Pasuk, before we says in the Pasuk, let me just bring to your attention as follows. Exactly what was Korach's sin? We know very well what their sin was, right? That they rebelled against Moshe and Aaron, against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, etc., etc. Also, the Rogatchover Gaon brings that he had a din of a kofer in Torah He had a din of a koifer. He has a halacha. It was a kvira b'chol Torah, and basically he brings from a Talmud Yerushalmi. It says in Talmud Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin Perik Yud, the Rogatchover brings to our attention that Korach said, "Ein Torah min hashamayim, v'loy Moshe Navi, v'loy Aaron Kohen Gadol, etc., etc." He said severe stuff, heavy stuff. So according to the Rogatchover Gaon, he sees it, and also many other Mefarshim sees Korach as someone who was koifer b'chol haTorah, and he calls Korach an apokoris, and he bases it on this Talmud Yerushalmi. You'll soon see why the Rogatchover does this. And it leads us to something interesting. What was the punishment? If you take out the Chumash, you'll see the punishment was very severe. Because if you'll see in the Chumash, it says in Kapitel Dazayin, Pasuk Chav Zayin, it says there as follows, Dosan va'aviram stand there, and they're standing there with Mishayim, Uvneihem, V'tapam. And Rashi brings to our attention, look how severe Machloikes is, that Bezdin Shal Mata doesn't punish only until the person is bar mitzvah and he has the pubic hairs. Bezdin Shal Mata doesn't punish until they're 20 years of age. And here, even babies, Nebuch suffered and were punished. So you see, the punishment was very severe. It's their wives, it's their sons, and in their babies, Okay, that's number one. We find also in relation to their property. Look, Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, look what it says in Pasuk Chavav. He says, "V'al tigu b'chol asher lohem penti sofu b'chol chatoisam." Don't touch anything of theirs, because if you'll touch anything of theirs, you'll get caught up with their sin. Just touching them. Now, it doesn't mean touching them. It's like the Mefarshim say, take out the Ramban muchatzach. And also the Ibn Ezra brings in Ibn Ezra. What's the reason behind this that he says not to touch? Doesn't mean not to touch. It means not to take. Don't take any of their property. But what's going on here? Why shouldn't they be able to take any of the belongings of the sinners? What's going on here? Okay, now so Rav Meir Simcha Midvinsk has a very interesting take, and I believe he's the first one to say it, but the Rogatchover Gaon is quite serious about it. The Rav Meir Simcha says as follows, take out the Pasuk Lamed Beis. It says in the Pasuk, "Vatiftach ha'oretz espia, vativla oisam, ves boteim, ves kol ha'odam asher lekoyrach, ves kol ha'rechush." So the Rav Meir Simcha in Meshech Chochmah, he says, why doesn't it say, ve'es kol rechusham, and all of their rechush? That would fit much better with the grammar of the Pasuk. It says, vativla oisam, ves boteim, ves kol ha'odam asher lekoyrach, ves kol rechusham. What's the kol rechush? So, the Meshech Chochmah Rav Meir Simcha is mechadash, that they were judged with a din of ir hanidachas. Ir hanidachas. There you go. And that's the logic of what it says here, Veis kol ha'rechush. And this is as follows. Says Rav Meir Simcha, and let me just bring to your attention what he says. In more detail. He says, Ve'ez kol ha'rechush. He says, being. The din is as follows. The din is by an ir hanidachas. What is an ir hanidachas? Ir hanidachas means a city, right? Which were influenced the majority of the people of the city were influenced to serve idols. And there are many guidelines there, as detailed in the Chumash, in Parshas Re'eh, and of course in much more detail, La Halacha, in Hilchas Rambam, Hilchas Avodah Zarah, Perik Dalet, in detail. Okay, so and also Verstetzach at the end of Mesichta Sanhedrin, in both in Bavli and Yerushalmi. So one of the halachas is as follows, says Rav Meir Simcha. One of the halachas is that even though the righteous aren't punished, when the ir hanidachas is, what's the din by ir hanidachas? Because the majority of the people in the city sinned, so they're all beheaded. They're not judged as individuals. If an individual serves idols, so then he has the din of skila, he's stoned. But being that there was a community, a whole community who serves idols, and they followed all the guidelines of the halacha of ir hanidachas, so therefore they are all beheaded. They're all chayiv hereg. Yes, and what happens? So it says as follows. It says, except for the righteous are saved, but it says the properties of the tzaddikim, the belongings of the tzaddikim are also, so to speak, burnt it. That's the din in the Chumash in Parshas Re'eh, that all of the shlala, all of the booty, everything of the Irani Dachas has to be gathered into the city, into the center of the city, and it's all burnt up. So the din is that all the belongings of the righteous in the city are also burnt, right, in the Irani Dachas. That's the din in the halachas of Irani Dachas. Everything is burnt up, the whole, because it's the shalol, it's the whatever was part and parcel of the Irani Dachas. The Mela says, Rabbi Meir Simcha, that's the reason why it says, it doesn't say there's kol rechusham, because rechusham would sound like it was only what? It was only the rechush of Korach and only the rechush of Dosan Va'avira, the sinners. But the din is by Irani Dachas, being that they were punished with the halachos, with the guidelines of Irani Dachas, doesn't say why they were punished with such guidelines. But he says from the Chumash it would seem they have a din of Irani Dachas. They're being judged with the judgment of Irani Dachas, with that severe punishment. That's why it says, even if it's not their own personal belongings, any rechush which was there, even the rechush of the tzaddikim, even of those who didn't sin, like the din is by Irani Dachas, that the rechush of the tzaddikim also are burnt up and swallowed up and lost. Like in this case, it was swallowed up in the ground. So the fact is, they definitely didn't reach, they don't have the, do they have the criteria of Irani Dachas? We see they're not burnt. The din is that you have to, the people who serve idols have to be beheaded, right? And also the city is burnt. Here, they're all swallowed up. So we see the Einish is not mamish the identical Einish. Also, is it a city? I don't know what it was. They were like a group of people. It's a community, but it's not a city. It may not meet the guidelines, what the guidelines of the Irani Dachas need. Take a look at the Rambam, Perik Dalet. It may have not followed. They didn't have the Madichel, etc., etc. Many different details they may have not met up with. Nevertheless, their punishment is so harsh, like an Irani Dachas. They have din Irani Dachas. That's what the Rabbi Simcha says. So that's why it says, it's called Rechush and not Rechusham, because all of anyone's property was swallowed up. With this, he explains also what it says, Unishayim uvneihem vitapam, even the babes. So Rashi says the reason why the babies went, because that was a severe punishment, because of machlokes. But he says, no, being that it was a din, the Hashem judged them, like with the judgment of Irani Dachas, the halacha is, take out a Rambam. In Hilchis, Avodah Zorah, Perik Dalet, the Rambam Paskins in Perik Dalet, halacha vav, that taf enoshim, even women, even if they didn't serve the idols, and taf, and also babies, even if they didn't sin. Even if they sin, they're minors and it's not punishable. But even if they didn't sin, nevertheless, the Rambam Paskins, that taf v'noshim are also punished, and they're also killed together with the rest of them. It's horrendous, but that's the din of Irani Dachas. Take out the Rambam, Perik Dalet halacha vav, and all the Mefarshim go to town and take issue with the Rambam, where the Rambam picked up this din that taf v'noshim are also killed, even if they didn't serve the idols, etc. And from Parshas Re'eh, it doesn't speak anything about taf v'noshim. Others want to say because it says hachreim, tachreim, tachrimum, etc. So as a din, you have to be machrimit, etc. So therefore everything is included in that. Therefore taf v'noshim also. But the Neisei Kelim, the Rishonim, and the Achronim, and Farshi Rambam deal with it. It was already asked by the Chachmei Lunil. It was the Rameh, one of the Gdolei Rishonim, takes issue with that Rambam, and the Chachmei Lunil, going back to the days of those who dealt with the Rambam. So they answer and they reconcile it, this Rambam, where the Rambam may have taken it from. If you'll take out a Rambam, you'll see that the Rambam, the Migdal Oz, has a lengthy exposition on it, and the Kesef Mishnah raises the point. And many Mefarshim to Pri Chodesh goes to town and is Agos Maim Chaim. And also the Sefer Seder Mishnah from Rab Zevov Bashkovich goes to town. And many Mefarshim, the Rogatchover really has loads of information there. Gewaltige Chidushim from the Rogatchover. Let's move on. Now, that's what Rabbi Simcha says. And interesting, the Oznaim La Torah quotes this Meshech Chochmah, and he's quite happy with it to say that he had a din Irani Dachas. I'm going to say as follows. The facts are that the Rogatchover Gaon says the same thing. Now, did the Rogatchover see the Meshech Chochmah is in question? I'm not sure. But even if he did, let's move. It's very, very late. I know we're moving. Chaim. The Rogatchover explains for this reason, being Now the Rogatchover uses his terminology, his wording, and he says they had a geder of Irani Dachas. And I believe he taka learns and he takes it quite serious. It's not just they're being judged with this harsh punishment, din Irani Dachas, but they actually have a geder of Irani Dachas. Because that's why he introduces to tell us that he was begeder koifer. In other words, he was koifer b'teres b'Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's where he says, Ein Torah min hashamayim v'lo Moshe Navi v'lo Aaron Kohen Gadol. And so therefore the Yerushalmi says he has a din of an apostate. In other words, it borders with the inyanim of Avodah Zarah, with denying HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I believe that's what the Rogatchover going to take, is both in his commentary on the Chumash and also in his commentary on the Rambam and also in his commentary in the Sichta Sanhedrin. So he's quite serious about it, and he says it's a geder of Irani Dachas. And he says that's why, take a look. He goes on to say why it says in that Pasuk Chavav, Val tigu b'chol asher lohem. That's the meaning, because if you take out a Parshas Re'eh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that it's hachrein tachrimim. In other words, they have to totally, no one's allowed to have and derive any benefit from the booty, from the left, from the sinners. So that's why it says in the Torah, over here says the Rogatchover, ala Torah, why it says, Val tigu b'chol asher lohem, says the Rogatchover, the reason why al tigu b'chol asher lohem is because it was a geder of Ir Hanidachas. And listen to how serious the Rogatchover going is. He goes on to explain as follows. Listen to Gewaltig Amtzah of the Rogatchover. In other words, he takes it a step further than Rameh Simcha, and he says, take a look where it says that they were swallowed up. So in the Chumash it says as follows. It says in the Pasuk, Vatiftach, Pasuk Lamed Beis, Vatiftach Haaretz Piyah, Vativ Lo Oisam Es Botei, Beis Kol Adam Asher LeKorach, Beis Kol Horechush. Says the Rogatchover, look, we mention Boteiim. Where do we mention Boteiim? Boteiim we mention Dafke by the others, but when we mention Beis Kol Adam Asher LeKorach, Beis Kol Horechush, we don't mention anything about Boteiim, about the homes. We don't mention homes. We only mention homes about the others. But by Korach, we don't mention anything about homes. Nevertheless, and he reiterates, he says, take a look also in Parshas Eikev. In Parshas Eikev, where the Torah again describes, and that is in Kapitel Yud Aleph, in Pasuk Vav, where the Torah describes the sins of Dasan Va'aviram. So the Torah says there too, V'asher osol Dasan Va'aviram b'nei Eliyav. Kapitel Yud Aleph, Pasuk Vav. V'asher osol Dasan Va'aviram b'nei Eliyav, ben Reuven asher potzes ha'aretz es b'yem v'ativ la'im, v'ez boteihem v'es aholeihem, v'ez kol hayikum asher b'ragleim b'karev kol Yisrael. So again, the Rogatchover says, look, it says boteihem by the others. It doesn't say boteihem by Korach. Why doesn't it say boteihem by Korach? So he's mechadash a chidush gadol. Listen to what he says. He says the Rambam paskins in Hilchas Avodah Zarah Perik Dalet that an Ir Miklot, a city of refuge, cannot become an Ir Anidachas, cannot become and be regarded and have the halachas which pertain to an Ir Anidachas. So if one of a city of refuge, those who are living there serve the idols, even though they serve idols and it seems to identify like an Ir Anidachas, they're not judged like a city, like the Ir Anidachas. Why, says the Rambam? The Rambam says it has the same din of Yerushalayim. They also, like I said, the Ravid takes issue with this Rambam, and nevertheless, the Mefarshei Rambam explained that the Rambam derives it from Yerushalayim, just like the halacha is that Yerushalayim Irakodesh cannot become an Ir Anidachas, because being that the Yerushalayim, there's no individual owner. It was loines chalkol shvatim. It's a communal ownership. There's a partnership. All of Klal Yisrael have part in Yerushalayim, and because by Ir Nidachas it says Ircha, individual owner, individuals own the place. So it has to be an individual Sha'arecha, Irecha. Therefore, Yerushalayim is not Irecha and Sha'arecha. From there, the Rambam derives also that every year Miklot, which is Ori Alavim, being that these cities are cities of refuge, so they're public ownership. There's no private owner. So it has a din of Yerushalayim, and the Rogatchover says that even the Rotzchim, even those who kill someone inadvertently and have to be saved by the Ir Miklot, they also have hand and a part of the owners of the Ir Miklot. In other words, there are many Bailim, there's no individual owner, so therefore the Rambam paskins an Ir Miklot an Ir Miklot can become an Ir Anidachas. Now, the din is as follows. The din is, by Ir Anidachas, if you take out a Chumash, a Parshas Ra'eh, by Iran Idachas, the din is, the Torah says that all the shalal of the city is burnt up. Everything is burnt and gathered, and everything is nothing left of the ear of the city. Now says the Rogatchover, being that the Gemara says in Masechta Zvachim Daf Kuf Yud Zayin that when the Yidden were in the desert, even though they weren't set aside or in Miklat cities of refuge until they were about to go over the Jordan, right? Because it says there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Meisu Rabbeinu to separate 3 cities. But when were they enacted? In other words, when did they actually kick in the 3 cities in this side of the Jordan? Only after they entered Eretz Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu separated 3 additional ones. But nevertheless, throughout their stay in the desert, says the Gemara Masechta Zvachim Daf Kuf Yud Zayin, says the Rogatchover, that there was an Ir Miklat which was functional whilst they were in the desert. Yeah? What was it? Guess what? Says the Gemara, it was Machane Leviyah, the whole encampment of the Levites. There was Machane Yisrael, Machane Shechina, Machane Leviyah, Machane Yisrael. The Machane Leviyah has a din of an Ir Miklat, says the Gemara, and actually was functional even before the 3 near the Jordan, but nevertheless, this was functional throughout the stay in the desert. The Mela says the Rogatchover going, being that where Korach lived, it had the din of an Ir Miklat, and the Rambam says an Ir Miklat cannot become an Ir Anidachas, so therefore, all the stuff of Korach, you get it? The stuff of Korach, the houses where Korach lived, which was where those homes were in the Machane Leviyah. His homes weren't swallowed. They couldn't be swallowed up. Because where were the homes swallowed up? Out of the Machane Leviyah, where the rest of the Shvatim were, where the Reishnun Sanadrois were, where the Dasan Va'avira were, where all the other people who followed Korach was. But Korach and all the people of Korach who were from Levim, so their cities, their houses couldn't be swallowed up because their houses have a din of an Ir Miklat, and an Ir Miklat can become an Ir Nidachas. Masha'en came. When the property is out of the Ir Miklat, out of the Ir Nidachas, anything which is found out of the Ir Nidachas, if it belongs to them, that is swallowed up. So now the Rogatchover brings to our attention as follows. The Rogatchover, so we see the Rogatchover is quite serious that they had a geder of an Ir Nidachas. That's why Yataka judged with that judgment, because it was begeder and had criteria of Ir Nidachas. The Rogatchover doesn't make this up. The Rogatchover bases it all, even though, like I say, the Rabbi Simcha doesn't bring any mocker for it, to my knowledge, from what I see. But the Rogatchover Gaon brings a raya from the Talmud Yerushalmi in the Masechta Sanhedrin Perek Yud Halacha Aleph. It says in Talmud Yerushalmi as follows. In Talmud Yerushalmi says that even, I'll read for you the Lashon of the Talmud Yerushalmi, and the Lashon is as follows. The Lashon is Afilu machat shehoyse she'ula b'yad Yisrael miyodom. Af hi nivla ohimoem. Dichsiv v'yerdu heim v'chol asher lohem chaim she'ola. In other words, the Rogatchover claims that, how do we know? And he says, muchach, it's proven from the Talmud Yerushalmi. He doesn't just make it up, and not just from the way we analyze the Psukim. Why does the Rogatchover analyze the Psukim this way? Because he says, we're forced to say, and it's obvious from the Talmud Yerushalmi, that the Talmud Yerushalmi understands that the geder of the anshik of the punishment was begeder Ir Nidachas, because it says in Talmud Yerushalmi that even a machat, which was lent to them, in other words, if it was their property, right, and it was lent to another Jew, it wasn't by them, in their domain. It wasn't in their property. It was something they owned, and they lent to another Jew. But when they are judged, we say the din is, and that's the din by Ir Nidachas. The din by Ir Nidachas is that if the sinners of the city of Ir Nidachas end up having property which other people have of theirs, so that is also burnt in the Ir Nidachas. That's what the Rambam paskins. And there are many guidelines there. But Al Kol Panim, it says before in Talmud Yerushalmi that even a needle which was lent of theirs in someone else's hand, it also was swallowed up And the Talmud Yerushalmi says, we know this from what it says. The everything of theirs was swallowed up. Meaning everything of theirs, even though it was someone else's property. Someone else borrowed it from them. It was also swallowed up. So the Rogatchover understands from this, how can it be? What kind of punishment is that? We only find such a thing by Iranidachas. So this Talmud Yerushalmi proves for him that they had a gather of Iranidachas, and therefore he explains the psukim, as we just finished saying, the way he explains it. Now, let's just go back a moment, and we're wrapping this up with the Rogatchover in Mesichtas Sanhedrin. And this is as follows. The Rogatchover going, after introducing for us this din, and this halacha, that Korach, the whole area, the whole punishment of the bliya is begeder iranidachas. Says the Rogatchover, we learned before taf v'noshim, right? Taf v'noshim also go along. Even the noshim didn't sin, and even the babes didn't sin. Nevertheless, the Rambam paskins. So even though, like I said, there's a big shaklavitari about it in the Bnei Rambam, and also in the Meforshei Chumash and the Ramban in Parshas Ra'eh. What taka is the reason why the women who didn't sin, but if they're the women of the sinners, they too are also killed with the rest of them, and especially the babes who didn't sin at all. And therefore, there's a sefer Avodas HaMelech from Rav Nachman Karkovsky who brings B'Shem Rab Chaim that we can't say that the babes are also punished if they didn't sin. Definitely, it's speaking in a case where they also sinned, the young ones. But Al Kol Panim B'Pashtus and Rambam, it's very clear that even if the Ktanim did not sin, and the women did not sin, nevertheless, they're punished because of their father. Because of the father, the head of the family sinned. And the Rogatchover says that the women are tfeilin leba'alein. They're like, so to speak, part and parcel of their husbands. That's what actually the Ramban brings in Parshas Ra'eh. And the same goes for the children, the young children. But only the young children. The adult children who sin, so it's punishable if the adult children sin. But the younger children, the minors who don't sin, nevertheless, they're also punished because, like the Rambam says in Hilchas Tshuva, that young children, minor children who are minors, are kinyanoi shel ha'adam. That's a person's acquisition, and being that it's kinyanoi shel ha'adam, so therefore, if the father sins, so therefore, unfortunately, the children are also punished along with the father. And that's the reason why the Rambam paskins that way. And like I say, there are many different mekaris for what the Rambam says, a sefri and a tosefta, etc., etc. Says the Rogatchover, here we go to what the Gemara says, that the Bnei Korach loy Meisu, and on the pasuk of Bnei Korach loy Meisu, it says that what? That mokoim nizbatzer lohem begehenim. What's going on here? Says the Rogatchover, based on the Shitas Harambam. In other words, based on what we established, that the Bnei Korach, in other words, all of this, what's going on in Parshas Korach, was begeder iranidachas, as we explained the details. And the Rambam paskins at noshim v'taf. And we're going now focusing on the taf. Even the babies, even the minors, even minors are also punished like their father, right? Just like the father's punished. Now, even if they didn't sin, says the Rogatchover, here we come to a very interesting thing. What happens in the case? What happens in the case where? Excuse me. What happens in the case where? Listen to this. He is a minor, but he is over 13. What happens then? He's a minor, but he's over 13. You know what that means? He's a minor, but he's over 13. You know what that means? I'm sure you know what that means. In other words, he is mitzad echad. He's mitzad echad. Excuse me, I'm just looking for a Gemara Nida. Give me a second. And let me get the Gemara Nida. And I have the Gemara Nida. And this is as follows. Says the Rogatchover, the Gemara says in Masechta Nida, listen carefully. The Mishnah says it's a Mishnah in Masechta Nida daf Nun Beis Amud Beis. Nun Beis Amud Beis, we're finishing. The Mishnah says, Shtei Saros ha'amur b'pora u'b'negoim v'ha'amuris b'chol mokim. So there are 3 days in the Mishnah. Basically, the Mishnah is addressing the pubic hairs. We know in order for one to become a godol, an adult. It's not good enough that he is a bar mitzvah or a bas mitzvah. He also has to have shtei saros. So the Mishnah addresses the din of the shtei saros, the two hairs stated regarding the red cow, because the din is also by paradum of the two black hairs. So it's invalidated, it invalidates the parah. And the same goes for the Gaon regarding affliction, saras, if there are two white hairs, so then he becomes a metzora, right? So the question is, what is the size? How do we measure those hairs? And the Mishnah says, and Rashi says, what does that mean? In order to transform a minor to an adult, right? So there are 3 days how we measure those hairs. So woman the Omar, the Tanakhama says, you have to be able to bend it. It should be long enough. The hair has to be able to bend from their top to their root. If the hair is long enough, the pubic hair is long, 2 saras, 2. Each one is long enough to bend it from the top to the root. So then he's regarded as an adult. These are the words of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Lazar says no. Rabbi Shmuel says likroitz bitzi poren. Excuse me, Rabbi Lazar says likroitz bitzi poren. If the 2 hairs are long enough to be able to handle it with your nails. And there are 2 opinions here. And there's a gewaldige Tshuvas Chassam Sofer who deals with the Rambam and the Rashi how to interpret this definition of likrois bitzi poren, to grasp those hairs with your nails. Does it mean that your nails get stuck if you go on the surface? Your nail gets stuck in the stump, whatever, in the hair, or does it actually mean you have to grab it with your 2 nails? And there's a tshuva Chassam Sofer and a Rechaim Kufran Dalad. Look there, a fascinating tshuva of the Chassam Sofer, gewaltige tshuva, who explains this Mishnah. And then, so that's the second opinion. Rabbi Kiva says they have to be long enough that they can be removed with scissors. Okay, so you have 3 opinions. Listen to what the Gemara says. So we have a small shtickle Gemara Mechaya, 2 lines, 1 line in the Gemara. That's the whole sugya. Amar Rav Chizda Amar Maruk, for the Amoraim say, halacha kedivrei kulan lahachmir. The halacha is in accordance with all of them in regard to acting stringently. We have to be machmir when it comes to all these 3 opinions. We incorporate all these 3 opinions l'chumra, to act stringent. Okay? Now, there's a machlokes between the Mefarshi or Rambam and the Chassam Sofer. Some say it means it's a halacha and it's a definite halacha. It's like halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that we have to follow with all these 3 opinions. L'chumra, I'm finishing. Or do we say it's because there's a suffix, we don't know who the halacha is like? Let me just read for you a Rambam. I'm reading for you a Rambam in English. Listen here carefully. Should a child, Rambam and Hilchas Ishus Perek Beis halacha Yudalef, and I'm going to wrap this up. Should a child reach the age without growing 2 pubic hairs, he is still considered a minor until he reaches the age of 20 years. Okay, should he reach the age of 20? Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm sorry. Halacha Tezayin. Whenever the term, the 2 pubic hairs, is mentioned with regard to a male or a female, the intent is that the hairs are long enough to be bent in half with their point touching their base. If they grow to the extent that they can be cut by scissors, but are not long enough that they can be bent in half with their point touching their base, there is doubt regarding the decision. And the more stringent ruling is always followed. Okay? Therefore, listen to what the Rambam says. This is the final conclusion of the Rambam. When a boy or girl's pubic hairs have grown to the point that they can be cut by scissors, the individual is considered to be an adult with regard to those matters concerning which the ruling would be more stringent if he or she were so classified. And with regard to those matters concerning which the ruling would be more stringent if he or she were classified as a minor, the individual is so classified because the pubic hairs are not long enough to be bent in half with their point touching their base. Okay, I hope you got what I just said. So I'll call upon him, says the Rogatchover, that's a halacha for Bezdin Shalmata. You have to pass in the halacha, it's negay to Hilchas Ishus, take out your Rambam Hilchas Ishus, you'll see it's negay la halacha. So therefore, when you don't know what to do, so you're stringent under all circumstances. What do we do in our case? Again, the Gemara says, Bnei Korach loy Meisu. So we're approaching this Gemara that they never sinned. According to the Targum and according to, not like Rashi, according to the Targum, according to the Ramban, according to the Ibn Ezra, they never sinned. There's no basis to say they sinned and therefore they didn't die. Nevertheless, the Gemara said they're sitting in Gehenna. Why are they sitting in Gaon for? And they're sitting in Makom Gavoya. Nisbatz Olahem Makom Gavoya. Why? Says the Rogatchover, listen carefully, get ready for this one. These fellows, the sons, the Bnei Korach, the 3 sons of Korach, were over the age of 13. Okay? Now, they didn't sin. They didn't sin. They're over the age of 13, but they didn't have pubic hairs like the shear that it can bend, the tip can bend over to the base, to the root. So it's a question, what are they? Are they gdolim or are they ktanim? Are they adults or are they minors? In other words, if it would have had the full length, like that first opinion we mentioned, so then definitely regarded as what, adults? And they're regarded as adults, so because they didn't sin, they surely wouldn't go to Gaon. And they wouldn't be swallowed up because they didn't sin. But we just finished saying that by Ir Anidachas, a minor, even if he doesn't sin. But because his father is punished, the minor is also punished. So here the question is, the Bnei Korach who are over the age of 13, but they don't have the full length of those pubic hairs, how do we understand their judgment? How do we judge them? Are they judged as adults and therefore they shouldn't get any Gehenim and not to be swallowed up because they didn't sin? Or if they're judged as minors, maybe they should be swallowed up like their parents were swallowed up, like their father was swallowed up. Because L'das Rambam, maybe we have to be machmir. So even though they don't have the full length of the pubic hairs, but because there's something there, and they're over 13, so therefore, even though it doesn't have the full length, so therefore that may still be minors, in other words, they may still be minors, and therefore we should judge them. That's why, because there's a suffix here, so l'chayr you should say you should be machmir, right? The Rambam says you're machmir. The Gemara says you're machmir like all of the opinions. So we should be machmir and they should go to Gaon. And there should be b'makom gavoya. They should mamish have Gaon. We should be machmir, we should say they have a din of minors. And just like their parent is judged, they should be judged like their parents, because all the minors have a din of their parents when it comes to Irani Dachas. But guess what? This is dinei nefashos. And we bow by dinei nefashos. Maybe when the Gemara says the Rogatchover that you're machmir, that's only when it comes to general dinim. Whereas negay to an adult and a minor, to isa v'heter, to kiddushin, and nisuin, and etc. So there we have to know if he's an adult or a minor. But here is dinei nefashos. Here's a shaila, should we kill the children or shouldn't we kill the children? Do the children have a halacha of their father or do they not have a halacha of their father? You want to say we should give them a stringent ruling and they should have the same dinim as their father and regard them as minors? But it's dinei nefashos. And who says we're machmir b'dinei nefashos? And so here the shaila is, so let's not be machmir. Sofik nefashos lahakel. But maybe we'll be machmir because it's dinei shamayim. If Beis Din shall matter, if we had to execute them, maybe when it was a suffix, we'd say sofik nefashos lahakel, and we regard them as minors. Right? We have to be stringent when it comes to nefashos. But because we're talking about dinei shamayim, they're swallowed up. Because Hashem punishes them, then it's a different story. And Bnei, therefore, on the one hand, they're going to Gehenim, right? Because possible they belong there. Like their father went into, was swallowed up. On the other hand, they're b'mokim gavoya in Gehenim. And that's why it says the Lashon Nizbatzer. And I believe the Rogatchover references a Mishnah, I'm finishing. References a Mishnah, Masechta Negoim, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Vav. Where it's there, it says, Nega mivutzeres. And there it means they are encircled. And I think the Rogatchover means as follows. I believe, maybe we can say it some other way. There's a lot to talk about this Rogatchover. Time doesn't allow, and I'm finishing. But there, the Mishnah means that a nega, an affliction, was encircled. It was circled around and it was protected, etc., etc. Here too, they're in Ganim, but they are encircled, they are protected. They're not like the rest of the people in Ganim. Why? Because they find themselves in a situation where it's a suffix if they should have the din that we have to be machmir with them, or because it's din in the nefashos and it's a din shel shamayim. So the question is if we're machmir or we makel. With this we end. If the Rogatchover learns like any other the above Mefarshim mentioned, how did they roll out? Because the Rogatchover starts off to say they were mesherim. There were definitely people who sang as Leviim and as they say out of part in the Sefer Tilim. So therefore, we must say that the Rogatchover will accept some of the reconciliations, how they got out of there eventually. But the etzem vort of what the Gemara says, as mokim nisbatzolem, mokim gavoin nisbatzolem, beginning is all based on this Shakalavetari and this Shaila. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hosting. L'chaim, a guten Tag. A gute Nacht.